We are back and we are joined by my friend, comedian, host of the Situation Room podcast,
Yes.
Francesca Fiorentini. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, what's going on? Good to be back.
Yeah.
Probably my last time before we get plunged into differing worlds of same pain or worse pain.
Hmm. Hard to disaggregate that. What are you said you were listening a little to the interview. What are your thoughts? Like, how are you feeling right now about the race?
I was feeling bad, and now I feel less bad, which again, given the political system we have, will take less bad and feeling less bad. But yeah, I think my thing is I really actually get 2016 vibes from this centrist pivot that Kamala's doing, and in a way that terrifies me because I do feel like what finally beat Donald Trump was obviously a global pandemic, but the Biden campaign truly incorporating the Bernie movement into its fold to varying degrees of success, and we can parse that later, but you know what I'm saying? There was a
Yeah.
real overture. And despite Biden and everything he said, and whatever Democrats say, we know that the BLM movement was, in fact, a massive reason that he won in
Yep.
2020. That you look at the polling, you look at the numbers, it's like, oh no, no, this is what it was because you had, Gestapo on the streets and you had extrajudicial killings happening, and young people were like, okay, like, don't want this anymore. Um, so that is why I am nervous, but I am willing to concede that maybe this is more like 2012. Maybe I shouldn't be so worried. Maybe the centrist pivot will all be fine
Yeah.
for whomever she's trying to get in Pennsylvania. That is definitely not me here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's extremely it's interesting because there's been analyses of how the electorate has changed. Like the Obama coalition has fractured completely. And I think the in many ways, as you're saying, the Biden campaign well, at least the Biden administration actually cared what Warren and Bernie had to say. I mean, the big reason why we have Lena Khan, in my view, is because Warren worked the inside game to get her in there. And Bernie, that's a huge reason why they've been so pro-union, I think. Like Bernie really was somebody that I think, Bernie Sanders and Biden are friends. Like they talk,
Right.
I think that's part of why Bernie held out so long in terms of like, yeah, when Biden was dropping out, he felt like he could make some inroads with Biden in ways he couldn't with Obama. But yeah, I think the coalition's just different. And I think that based on the numbers that they're seeing when they're trying to just hyper target these high propensity voters, going for older white people, that's really what they're doing. And I
Yeah.
haven't seen metrics that would contradict that would say that that's bad strategy, frankly. I'm worried
Yeah.
about Michigan. I'm worried about Michigan, obviously.
Yeah.
And the fact that she hasn't differentiated herself on Biden with Gaza. Like, what's your feeling about that as of right now? I mean, it's just crazy to see still to this day.
Yeah.
She just isn't even taking the suggestions that I think are really strong from Pelosi of all people. I mentioned this with Dave. Just criticize Netanyahu. That's all you got to do. I mean, we're
Yeah.
not asking for the world here. That
Yeah.
would be a good signal.
Yeah, and not only that, it's like we're all reading the news. I think there's this weird presumption that like also very active voters, people who are definitely gonna vote or are involved in the political system, emissaries of, would be emissaries of her message, are not seeing that Blinken lied about whether or not Israel was blocking humanitarian aid and got intel from the USAID and was like, cool, I'm gonna lie in front of Congress on this, and continued sending weapons to Israel. We know that Biden privately basically was like, "Gee, I don't think Netanyahu wants me, man," and it's like, no, he doesn't. So it's like we see what's happening. We're reading, and yet there is no change in, again, her stance. And here's what I have to say more broadly, which is, I think for those people who don't think that the anti-war movement is growing within the Democratic Party, I very much disagree with you.
100%.
And people like Ruel Roman, Georgia state representative, who maybe was going to speak at the DNC, she disagrees with you. She sees just in Georgia the movement around this issue in ways she has never seen in her lifetime. And I concur. All my years in the anti-war movement, in the Palestine justice movement, never seen this kind of energy. So let's not nix ourselves out of the equation here.
100%.
We can still fight for this. And yet it freaking sucks that being pro-genocide is not disqualifying as a candidate. That is impossible to swallow and to admit.
It's exactly right. And it's also what informs my, maybe an optimism's the wrong word, because it's impossible to have any rose-colored glasses about our government funding one of the worst crimes in the history of humanity as we speak. Yep. But that's what gives me optimism about potentially a shift in policy if we have her in, because the coalition is growing. And this isn't about, I don't care what's in her heart. I just don't care. But I do care about...
She doesn't know what's in her heart. I'm sorry.
She's a cipher. Sam talks about Biden as a cipher for the Democratic Party. I think she's a cipher. Like, Biden has real ideology about Israel. Real ideology. I don't think she shares that. I think she'll go where the party goes. And that is something where, as you say, with this coalition growing, I mean, I don't want to throw my mom under the bus, but my mom's just like a standard Democrat. She doesn't,
Oh, same. Mom. When there's like two blues against one another, she does like a glitch and is like,
I know. and she was not in agreement with a lot of my rhetoric about Palestine, right? But she said to me the other day, my opinion on the war has changed. Like, this is really wrong. And it had been changing before. Again, not trying to throw her under the bus, but like, I look at her and I go, this is like a normie Democrat, right? 100%. We'll always vote Democrat. That means this is breaking through, and people are sick of this shit. And so for Harris's own self-interest, she has to at least shift slightly, because this is not gonna, if she doesn't, I don't know what the future holds for the Democrats, because she'll get wiped out and she would deserve it.
She'll get wiped out. I mean, I said this before. It's like, if in 4 years she doesn't, I'll say this here, if she doesn't change on this issue and no Democrat primaries her in earnest over it, I'm done. Like, I'm out. Then I'm like, really like, okay, where are we going here? Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think third party, especially in 4 years, probably unlikely to be, viable. But yeah, it's just, it's untenable, and that's good. We're moving in a really good direction. But it's also just like, we see the reports of doctors in the States saying, when I was in Gaza, I saw sniper attacks on children. I took bullets out of children's brains. I mean, and they died. And you're like, we're all seeing this. Can't you just acknowledge the news? Even call it a tragedy if you don't want to put it on Israel's hands. Just acknowledge what we're all seeing.
Let's play 10 here, Bradley, just because this is very much what you were alluding to. Two doctors went on CNN and they push back here on the way that Kate Bolden is framing this question. The New York Times just had, of all places, but in the opinion section, I think, but a long write-up that you're referring to of doctors explaining what they saw. Yeah. This is breaking through. And I thought this was really effective. This is Doctors Thair Ahmed and Tanya Haj Hassan. Dr. Ahmed has been on the Majority Report before. Here he is basically taking the CNN anchor to task on their framing.
Is coming under attack. And you mentioned actually at the beginning about these evacuation orders. These evacuation orders are for 3 hospitals in the north. Kamal Adwan Hospital, Indonesian Hospital, and Al Auda Hospital. Why are hospitals still coming under evacuation orders? Why are we still hearing about hospitals coming under attack and healthcare workers being killed? I want to just mention Dr. Khalid Dassur, a colleague of mine who I worked with at Nasser Hospital, brilliant young surgeon. When the Israeli military surrounded the hospital, he refused to leave his patients. He stood with his patients and tried to keep them alive as water, electricity, and supplies were cut off. He was subsequently abducted, and for 6 months, he languished in Israeli dungeons until he was released 2 days ago. Do you know what Dr. Khalid Dassur did? He went right back to Nasser Hospital and started working with patients again. I mean, if it wasn't for these Palestinian healthcare workers, we'd be in a much more grim situation. And the final thing I'll say is, 700 kids in Gaza, 700 infants never saw their first birthday in Gaza over the last year. 200 of them born and killed in this conflict, 200 of them born and killed in this assault. I mean, the situation is so dire. We need a ceasefire. We need it right now.
And Dr. Hassan, speaking of the evacuation orders in the north and now in the south that we've seen today, one resident of northern Gaza who was just this weekend had to flee once again told the Associated Press this, and I think it was jarring, telling, and striking, said this: since October 7 to the present day, this is the 12th time that I and my children, 8 individuals, have been homeless and thrown into the streets and do not know where to go. Where do you think it does? What do you think is going to happen with this humanitarian crisis, with the additional factor of Gaza is about to enter the winter, which often brings heavy rain to the region?
Kate, in all honesty, a humanitarian crisis is what you deal with when you have a hurricane, what you deal with when you have an earthquake. You have an insult and a humanitarian response. This is my career. This is what I do for a living. Every single person who does this for a living will tell you the same thing. This is different. This is not a humanitarian crisis. Kate, and I'm going to say it very clearly for your viewers to hear, this is genocide. When 70% of the population that are killed are women and children, when the population is starved of food, of water, of medicine, when you have attacks, repeated attacks on all the hospitals, the clinics, the aid distribution sites, the humanitarian aid agencies that try to help. More UN workers have been killed in Gaza than in UN's history. When you have over 900 families that have been exterminated, that have been taken off of the civil registry, killed, when you have over 17,000 children that have lost one or both parents, when you have bakeries, aid distribution sites, churches, mosques, schools, and in the last 3 days, in the last 24 hours, in fact, a hospital today that was bombed, as you just reported, the hospital where I personally was working, and I can tell you, they are working every second of every day to try and sustain life when Israel's strategy and evidence on the ground suggests that they're doing the exact opposite. They were targeted today. There was a rehabilitation hospital, rehabilitation center that was targeted in the last 24 hours, and there was an orphanage that was targeted earlier this week. These are the types of places that are being targeted. And so it's really hard to hear it over and over and over again, framed in the way that it's being framed in the media, which frankly, Kate, is very misleading. It is very misleading. 365 days of this. Death tolls that are so far outdated. We have no idea how many people are killed, but I am genuinely afraid about what we're going to find out when the dust settles. History books will be written on this. And countries will have to reckon, media agencies will have to reckon with their major role in the genocide of an entire population and in the destruction of humanitarian law.
Wow. So I had just read this write-up. I hadn't seen the clip yet. Damn, did she
read?
Well, so, you know, first of all, maybe I'm giving too much credit to Kate Bolden. Like, you know, this is from the top down with CNN. The fact that she had them on at all is an improvement. But that's exactly right. Like they talk about. I'm watching CNN. You know, I'll turn on CNN because of the hurricane just to get an update. It's the exact same language that they use. But for Hamas's attack on October 7th, brutal, vicious, targeted, systematic rape. All this kind of active language. But God, what could we do? I mean, when she says that death toll, people should look up GazaHealthcareLetters.org. There's a template on the website where you can email the White House. The doctors, 99 healthcare workers, you know, doctors, nurses who have been working in Gaza, like those heroes that we just saw on CNN. It is likely that the death toll from this conflict is already greater than 118,908, an astonishing 5.4% of Gaza's population. Yeah. That is the minimum. And we're still using 40K. But you know why? This has been Israel's strategy the entire time. Is because when they attack the civil infrastructure and hospitals, you can't count anymore. And they wanted to get to that point where there was no... They've killed all the record keepers and they've destroyed all the ways to keep records. Yes. And so now they're taking advantage of this time period to kill as many people under the cloak of darkness. It's also why they kicked out all of the journalists and have targeted journalists for and have killed well over 100 media workers within Gaza, because they don't want people knowing until it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, it's unforgivable, right? Like, I think this is Biden's legacy, and it will be Kamala Harris's legacy if she wins the election and doesn't change on this.
Yep.
It is, I mean, when she says news agencies and politicians and history books, will make you reckon with what you've done. It's like, yeah, it's been a year of this. Is not 6 months. This is not 2 months of now this is the fog of war deliberately being used to commit more war crimes. And Netanyahu said that, and now it's, extending to Lebanon. Triple strikes. We're going to strike civilians. We're going to strike the ambulance workers. We're going to strike the people who went after the ambulance worker. It's just like on and on and on. They keep going. And so, again, we need an anti-war caucus movement inside and outside of Washington to make sure that this stops and that we truly change. That Zionist becomes a dirty word. Let's be real.
100%.
I mean, it already is with young people. I mean, you saw with the Speedy Mormon interview. This is one of my favorite Biden interviews, opening with the question, are you a Zionist? There's a reason they did that. Because Complex's audience, young people, people of color, don't have a good view of it because of what we've seen.
Right. If Kamala Harris comes out and says I'm a Zionist, then I'm going to be more like, okay, this is insanity. I mean, she at least didn't show up to Netanyahu's speech, but Biden going out there and talking about how he's a Zionist, it proves the point that this is not about Judaism. I mean, it's just he is a Christian Zionist, but he's been in Washington since the 70s. He's been just baked in Israeli lobby propaganda. And we know that Biden eulogized Strom Thurmond and has racist tendencies. So it makes total sense with his history as a politician. I mean, that's why Obama selected Biden, in part, because he smoothed over things with the racists that were squishy about voting for a black man. And that's very much in keeping with how he's operated as it relates to Palestine. And so, yeah, exactly. This is unfortunately because Biden did a lot of good things domestically. The infrastructure bill was no joke. I love the fact that he's been the most pro-union president in decades. That's a real thing. But this is his true legacy as midwifing one of the worst crimes in the history of humanity, this genocide.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just glad that after so long, he was finally able to free one hostage, and that is himself. So, but yeah, it's look, not every politician was like rocked like a baby on a blanket by Golda Meir and told everything the light touches is yours. Biden was. And so, yeah, Kamala is, yes, it's more of a potential to push. And my God, do we need to?
My God, do we need to? And if you would like to push and write a letter to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, that letter template I just mentioned, Gaza healthcare letters. You can see the email the White House. There's also a Canada letter and a UK letter for folks that are watching this in either of those countries, where you can email your leaders. But this is a template, and you could download the PDF here, and we'll put a link to that in the description wherever people are listening to or watching this. Gaza healthcare letters.org. I had meant to do that earlier. So let's have some more fun then. Now that we've covered the active genocide our tax dollars are going towards. All right. Okay, you want to do clip 5?
In terms of my neurological capacity.
I'm staying in the race. He should jump back in.
I'm staying in the race.
That's what I wanted. It's my
favorite. Can I just make a quick plug for, if you guys are in CA 34, we're trying to get Jimmy Gomez out. Speaking of bad Democrats who take hand over fist money from DMFI and other AIPAC associated groups. So text your friends and family. Ballots were just mailed out this week. Early voting is underway in California. David Kim over Jimmy Gomez. Jimmy Gomez ain't no progressive. He falsely claimed Bernie supported him and backed him. He didn't. David Kim is awesome. He is a child lawyer, a family attorney, and he is a Korean American. He's progressive. He's just awesome. And this is his third time running against Jimmy Gomez, and we are within striking distance. So I've been volunteering, and I urge everyone to vote David Kim and get involved if you want.
vote David Kim in California. That's that's a good plug. It's interesting. Like, are you seeing all the tough on crime ads in California? Because I mean, Kirsten Gillibrand in New York is running ads about how tough she is on criminals and on the border and things like that.
Jesus.
And it's
what,
just
for the Canadian border?
Basic. I mean, don't tell Hochul about it because she may lob some bombs over there. You know, do you remember that comment? It's just, God. She said that if she likened October 7th to an attack on
if the Canadians decided to come over
and attacked Buffalo, and she basically said she would nuke Canada. It's like, all right, lady, we understand why you have.
We'd raid hellfire over on our northern border.
Yeah,
those Canadians don't even know how to use computers.
Right.
That line.
Yeah. But
cut your head off and play like with a soccer ball.
This is This is Bradley's. Wait, is this Hamas Hochul? Yeah, there we go. But
I don't know her voice enough, but I really would love to try an impression. What's she like?
She's
Is that what it's like? It's like kind of
she's a bit of like a Erie County accent.
She's from Buffalo.
Okay.
And she has she's net minus 20 approval here. Like, the Democrats are getting just shellacked in New York State. Is that the same thing in California? Like, they're seating all the right-wing framing, and it's affecting turnout. I mean, the Democrats could have, in theory, held on to the House if they didn't do so poorly in New York State last year.
I mean,
last cycle.
You guys still have to atone for that, and your whole ranked choice voting slip up, which is I like RCV, but Eric Adams, although he helped himself out. I think it's less so here in California. It's more solidly blue, but then again, you have just these very pro-corporate, again pro-genocide candidates like Jimmy Gomez, who people like my loving mother, who's wonderful, sees something like that and is like, oh, incumbent Democrat, that's all I need to know. I can, go back to the farmer's market. That's just and it's like, no, there's very particular differences between these people. And then you got Gavin Newsom at the helm over here when it comes to sort of California local politics, which does not help. A guy who is going to homeless encampments and cleaning them himself, like he's, like a next door Anderson Cooper. You're like, what if Anderson Cooper was Karen? Like that kind of thing. And you're like, who is this for? So there's a lot of who is this for? And it really is for money, obviously. And this is one of the most unequal states. I think that's the other thing. It's it's a very unequal state. San Francisco doesn't suffer from, all whatever it is, the unhoused zombies. No, it suffers from inequality. LA suffers from inequality and also a massive budget shortfall that progressive Kenneth Mejia, LA comptroller, has been sounding the alarm on. And so, that's all I know about California politics, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the Democrats in these safe blue states have just bought into the tough on crime stuff. Like, in the same way that nationally, the Democrats have just said, okay, we're abandoning most of the positive messaging that we're going to give on immigration about how immigrants are good for this country, how Harris is just like, I prosecuted transnational criminal organizations, I'm a tough bitch, all this stuff. But they're doing the same thing on crime in some of these states where it's like, can we just emphasize the fact that violent crime down, property crime down? Like, we had a once in a lifetime pandemic where crime, yes, ticked up. And now we're back to the levels that we saw in 2019, and we're on a decline. For decades, crime has been on a decline.
I don't know.
We can't have, that's such a simple case to make, and Democrats in these big blue states are refusing to do so.
I don't know, Emma. Someone stole a package off my lawn, and so now I'm a Nazi.
Right.
But I don't know what your origin story is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's disappointing. What's interesting about Newsom going hard against the unhoused is that he can't go hard against immigrants because that was his political lane against DeSantis, being like, oh, I'm human and I see them as real people. And now that it's like, oh, it's all the rage to low key go after immigrants. He's like, damn it. Okay, I'll just, clean up someone's life belongings from under a overpass.
And you know why that is? It's because in these big blue states with a lot of rich people in the suburbs, it plays with them. They don't want to think of themselves as racist, but they also don't really want to see a person who may be unhoused around the block from them. And with these states that are really have a lot of population, don't have good housing policy, and there's voters who are Democrat, but they're really wealthy Democrats, that's who they're playing for. And it's really unfortunate.
Homeowners.
Exactly. It's about property owners. And that is a big problem for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and one that's changing, obviously, with younger representation, right? I think, was it Maxwell Frost in Florida Maxwell Frost, who's a renter, and was like, hey, we are renters.
So. Yeah.
But yeah, it's the state it's whatever. But anyway, would be better with David Kim, F Jimmy Gomez and his dad's caucus. His child, he's like a neighbor, and his child is the same age as mine, and we've like interfaced. And in like November, I saw him on the street, and I was like, look, we need a ceasefire in Gaza. You got to do this. And I told him, I was like, if you ride with the anti-war movement right now, if you go hard for a ceasefire, you will have, I was like, you will have supporters for life. I'll be outside your home. And I don't know. I was like, trust me, I was like looking him into the eyes, buttering him up. He's there with his kid. They're playing Raffy. I'm there with my kid. She's in her stroller. And I'm like in his face, like, you better, and he's like, that's not why I do policy. It's not for that. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't have enough money on me right now for you.
Yes.
To convince you of my position.
But you were also wearing that T-shirt that says "I hate Jews," so that's kind of part of why the message.
It must have been that.
It must have been that T-shirt. All right, let's do 5. I want to have fun. This is easy. Making fun of Brian Kilmeade. It's good for you.
It's kind of an intellectual.
Yeah. Here he is, the professorial Brian Kilmeade. Talking about black voters, black men. Why do they like Trump? He says. There's not a ton of data to back this up, but here he goes. This is his political analysis.
I thought Eddie Griffin said something interesting, and this story is on FoxNews.com. He's relatively an X-rated black, but very black comedian. He's very funny.
Black.
Watch your language here. I know, please. It says the black community. He goes. He offered a humorous argument that Trump has certain credentials the black community likes. He's got 3 baby mamas. 43 felony cases and counting.
Oh boy.
He's selling high-top tennis shoes like Michael Jordan, and he got shot like Tupac. He goes, I'm voting for him. He goes, I'm going to try. He goes, I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped an album next.
I don't think the coach, I think he's clearly making a joke. I don't think the community cares much about that. But I do think when they continue, the Democrats have to be very careful. And if you notice, there was a huge surge of saying felon, 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 felon. Well, I thought the Democratic Party was for felons being able to vote and for a second chance. And I think there's this double speak with the Democratic Party that's going to hurt them. We don't care about the shoes and all that type of stuff. We care about the money.
Do you know how many felons there are in this country out and about? 30 million.
Okay. The idea that Kilmeade had the gall to read that with a
Lawrence,
black guy next to him on the set.
Lawrence, you'll get a kick out of this. I printed out an article from Fox.com.
Does this resonate with you?
Eddie Griffin, you know that guy, Lawrence? You friends with him?
That was a bad point, though, by Lawrence. What's his last name?
Lawrence Jones.
Yeah. By Lawrence Jones, in the sense, he's making it about it's a right-wing framing, but the Democrats shouldn't emphasize some of that felon stuff because and I don't think they've been saying felon, actually. I think Harris has been more saying that, he's going to be appearing in a courtroom and things like that, because it is true that we have overly incarcerated, we're the top jailer in the world. We've incarcerated so many people for low-level offenses, extremely punitive criminal justice system, and feeding into the framing of, felon, disgusting, isn't helpful. But it also isn't having the effect that he's describing of like, they're all going to come over, they're coming over to the Democratic Party, to the Republican Party. Just you wait and see.
Okay, here's what I'll say. I kind of disagree about the felon thing. Like, obviously,
interesting
abolitionist here, I hate all this language. I hate the carceral system, 2 million people in and out of it. But of all the things, this just sort of reminds me of like, you really shouldn't fat shame Trump because that's like disrespectful. It's like, shut up. He is a disgusting fascist slug.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's a convicted
Just
criminal.
call him a criminal,
and of all
though.
the times.
Not a felon.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Criminal versus felon. Yeah, it's just, to me, I'm like, of all the times to like soft pedal on the crime narrative, it is very funny and fitting that Kamala Harris is like a prosecutor, a black woman, all of the Venn diagram of everything of Trump's kryptonite, really. And that's just like so poetic. It's beautiful. So I'm a little bit like, if anything, go softer on immigration, go softer on Gaza. Like, you know,
yeah.
I don't.
Well, that's where she shined, was the debate where she gets to be a prosecutor to this obvious crook. And like, I like crook and criminal more than felon, but I mean, we're parsing
that's
things.
a good point.
Yeah,
I mean, what I love about this clip, though, let's just be real, that like Ainsley is like, they're all just like, as soon as Lauren starts talking, it makes a good point. She's just like, could you just agree and laugh and let's move on? You blacks are like that. Okay.
Can we stop talking about this, please?
You were here to yes and, not to contradict us.
Also, I don't know if you guys noticed that Brian Kilmeade at one point when he's describing Eddie Griffin, the source material, he's like, he's a black but very black comedian. He almost said black but very funny.
Yeah.
He almost was like, he's black, but
but hey,
he's still funny.
I mean, doesn't make you feel bad, you know?
I know, right? Like if you're watching this before you're teeing off at the golf course, 82-year-old man watching this show, please, he's one of the good ones, just like our friend over there who was supposed to not contradict me. God damn it!
Yeah, just laugh.
Just laugh. Be there to laugh.
They love that. They love the idea because they know it's a mockery of black people. It is another way to be racist.
Yeah,
so openly racist, and no one's really calling him on Trump on that. Obviously, in part because like Kamala Harris really doesn't want to bring up her own identity.
Yeah.
And not, I mean, again, for the golfers watching on their break. But you could explain how disrespectful this line of sneakers and felonies is felony.
But the flip side on tactics here is like Hillary made it all about herself in 2016, and I'm with her. I'm this change candidate.
It's her turn.
Yeah, like everyone knows she's a woman. People can see. Like she doesn't need to explain the situation. Kamala Harris is. And the other thing that's kryptonite for Trump is also that Kamala's hot. That's the other thing that's kryptonite. No,
did you see the Vogue cover?
I didn't see
Trump's
it.
Gonna be like, oh my god.
She is.
Do not show this to me.
She's a hot lady, and I think that also sends him into a bit of a tizzy.
Yeah, a few weeks ago he was on the radio interview and he was like, I saw her on the cover of this magazine and she looked unbelievable. Oh my god, what were we talking about again? What was the
Melania.
question? Yes, he said he looked like his Slovenian wife. His Slovenian wife resembled a black and South Asian woman. He's like, that's how hot I thought she was. I could have sworn.
Oh, that's so funny.
I mean, at least it wasn't the Ivanka switch, because that's how you know you're done for. As soon as he compares you to Ivanka,
right,
run.
That's why he was asking Bloomberg at the 9/11 memorial. He's like, Mike, give me a shot. Just let me talk to her once more. I know. Let me have one more chance with her after the debate.
I mean, again, though, to Francesca's point, she doesn't. I think he knows she's hot, but he's not going to go after her because she doesn't look enough like his daughter. That's the problem. It's just like he can't. At this age, the only thing that's getting it done for him is daughter adjacent stuff.
That's not.
You don't want me to go there? Not too far?
I mean, we already found out he sleeps naked. Melania dropped that this week. Yup. On the 5. Because Greg Gutfeld wanted to know. Oh, so does he sleep ever? Does he wear pajamas?
Can I wear those pajamas?
And she says, yeah. What do they smell like? Are they for sale? And she's like, no. And then she goes,
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah, he sleeps naked. Is he like Baron Harkonnen or whatever, in like a pad of oil?
He sleeps in a vat of goo.
Of oil. Yeah.
The amount of oil that is around his body, he doesn't need the pajama.
he rises from the goo. He's not even wet from it. He's like, where are my sons?
I mean, honestly,
where are my obsequious boys?
He should just sleep in his tanning bed. I mean, it would really save time for him. More time to golf.
I'm sort of convinced he sleeps in the suit.
Yeah, I mean, he does have never nude
wrinkled
energy.
enough.
What'd you say?
No, it's not wrinkled enough.
Yeah. I he's the kind of guy that probably throws out a suit after one wear. I mean, that's the level of disregard for consumption that we're talking about.
The laundry
here.
basket is just a trash can.
Right, exactly. All right, Francesca, anything else you want to get
dude,
to?
everybody check out the Bituation Room, streaming Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Today I'm going to have on 2 organizers with me, Gente. And I just have to read you guys this one thing. They said on their website, this election, we reject the status quo and organize under strategic necessity to create the conditions that drive change from the ground up. So I like that. I'm going to find out what that means. And we're going to look at Kamala Harris and her town hall in Vegas yesterday.
Oh, nice. All right.
So youtube.com/FrannyFio.
Yes.
And Bituation Room, wherever you get your pods.
I feel like, we're in this independent media space, and then we find out with Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and stuff like that. Oh, they have big benefactors, and this is complete asymmetrical warfare. But in terms of what you're doing, Francesca's one of the good ones. Fully, you can trust her values inherently. There's a lot of people selling out or whatever, but Francesca's not one of them. So.
I was arrested at the RNC in 2004. Don't do the math on how old I am. I haven't been around. You can trust me. I'm not going to turn to the right yet. Unless you don't support my Patreon, then
then that's akin to anti-white genocide or whatever.
I'll find something in this interview to pick out, and then I'll go,
I'm always
never know what's going to set you off.
I'm always uncomfortable when it's you
know.
two because it's just too anti-women whenever we're talking.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly right.
That I'm always the most feminist out of the two of you guys, out of the three of us.
Well, I mean, that's when we criticize Kamala, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just kind of makes me.
You're the one who brought up the fact that she was hot.
I did. I mean, look, I'm a toxic woman. I'm a toxic woman.
What can I say? I'm a toxic woman.
This is your pre-roll ad. I'm a toxic woman.
I'm a toxic woman. I can
That's
hang
why
with
I
the
need
guys.
your support.
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore, but I do know that I adore you, Francesca Fiorentini.
Likewise.
Check out the Bituation Room, and thanks so much.
Later.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.